Maya Rodriguez had been serving tables at Seaside Cafe for 3 years, but she'd never encountered a customer quite like this one. The man in the perfectly tailored navy suit had just asked her to clear out the entire patio section for his private use, offering to pay triple the price for every table. The other diners, families celebrating anniversaries and couples on first dates, watched nervously as Maya stood her ground. She had no idea this stranger controlled a business empire worth $12 billion. She had no idea he owned luxury resorts across 3 continents. And she certainly didn't know that her simple act of fairness would completely transform her life. But as she politely declined his request, one question lingered in the salty ocean air. Could standing up for ordinary people catch the attention of someone extraordinary? Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The afternoon sun cast dancing shadows across the weathered wooden deck of Seaside Cafe, where Maya Rodriguez balanced 3 plates of fish and chips, while weaving between tables packed with the usual weekend crowd. Tourists with sandy feet and locals seeking refuge from their air-conditioned offices filled every available seat, creating the kind of bustling atmosphere that Maya had grown to love during her 3 years working at the beachfront restaurant. At 26, Maya had developed an intuitive sense about people. She could spot a difficult customer from across the room, identify which tables would tip generously, and navigate even the most complicated orders with a smile that never felt forced. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her apron bore the inevitable stains of a busy lunch shift, but her genuine warmth had earned her a reputation as one of the cafe's most requested servers. The lunch rush was beginning to wind down when he walked in. Maya noticed him immediately, not because of his expensive clothing or the confident way he carried himself, but because of how everyone else seemed to shrink back slightly as he passed. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, with steel-gray eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of his surroundings. His navy suit looked like it cost more than Maya made in several months, and his leather shoes gleamed despite the sandy floors that plagued every coastal establishment. Maya approached his table with her usual friendly demeanor. The man had chosen a corner spot on the patio that offered a clear view of both the ocean and the restaurant's interior, positioning himself like someone accustomed to maintaining visual control of his environment. "Welcome to Seaside Cafe," Maya said, placing a menu in front of him. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The man looked up from his phone, studying her face with an intensity that made Maya momentarily uncomfortable. His gaze wasn't inappropriate, but it held a calculating quality that suggested he was used to evaluating people quickly and thoroughly. "Actually," he said, his voice carrying the crisp pronunciation of expensive education, "I'd like to discuss a different arrangement. I need privacy for a business call, and I'm willing to compensate the restaurant handsomely for it." Maya tilted her head slightly, not quite understanding. "I'm sorry, what kind of arrangement?" The man gestured toward the bustling patio around them. "I'd like you to clear this entire section, move these people inside, or offer them vouchers for another day. I'll pay triple the current revenue for every table you relocate." For a moment, Maya thought she had misheard him. She glanced around at the families and couples enjoying their meals, at the elderly woman reading her book while sipping iced tea, at the young parents trying to keep their toddler entertained while they finished their lunch. The idea of disrupting all these people's peaceful afternoon seemed almost absurd. "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but we can't just ask paying customers to leave their tables," Maya replied, keeping her tone respectful but firm. "Is there something specific I can help you with? Maybe I could find you a quieter corner, or we could see if our manager has a suggestion." The man leaned back in his chair, his expression shifting from expectant to surprised. Clearly, this wasn't the response he was accustomed to receiving. "You don't understand. I'm not asking for a favor. I'm making a business proposition that would benefit everyone involved." Maya felt a flutter of nervousness in her stomach, but she held her ground. "I understand that you're willing to pay, and I'm grateful for that. But these people chose to spend their Saturday afternoon here too. The family at table 12 is celebrating their daughter's graduation. The couple by the window just got engaged 20 minutes ago, and Mrs. Peterson over there comes in every weekend to read and watch the waves, because her husband passed away last month and this was their special place." She paused, surprised by her own boldness, but continued. I can't ask them to give up their happiness just because someone else is willing to pay more for it. The silence that followed felt charged with tension. Maya could see other servers glancing their way, sensing something unusual was happening but not quite sure what. The man stared at her for what felt like an eternity, his expression unreadable. Finally, he smiled, but it wasn't the frustrated or angry response Maya had expected. Instead, there was something almost pleased in his expression, as if she had passed some kind of test he hadn't expected her to even recognize. What's your name? He asked. Maya Rodriguez. Maya Rodriguez, he repeated slowly, as if committing it to memory. And how long have you worked here? 3 years, she replied, still uncertain where this conversation was heading. And in those 3 years, have you always put your customers' experiences above potential profit? Maya felt her cheeks flush slightly. It's not really about profit for me. I mean, I'm just a waitress. I don't make those kinds of decisions. But I do think people deserve to be treated fairly, regardless of how much money they have. Why? The man nodded slowly, pulling out his phone. I need to make some calls, but I'll take that quieter corner you mentioned if it's available. Relief washed over Maya as she realized the confrontation was ending peacefully. Of course. Let me see what I can do. She managed to find him a small table near the back of the patio, partially shielded by a decorative screen that would provide some acoustic privacy. As she helped him relocate, Maya couldn't help but notice how other patrons seemed to relax once the tension in the air dissipated. The man ordered a simple grilled fish with vegetables and spent the next hour on his phone, speaking in low tones about what sounded like complex business matters. Maya caught fragments of conversations about resort occupancy rates, staff management challenges, and guest satisfaction surveys, but she didn't pay much attention. She was too busy handling the continued lunch rush and ensuring that all her tables felt well cared for. When the man finally asked for his check, Maya was surprised to see that he had left a tip of $500 on a $38 meal. She stared at the receipt, certain there had been a mistake. Sir, I think you might have added an extra zero, she said, approaching his table as he prepared to leave. He looked up from his phone with that same calculating expression she had noticed earlier. No mistake. You provided exceptional service today, Maya Rodriguez. But I barely did anything special. I just seated you at a different table. Exactly, he said, standing and extending his hand. I'm Alexander Cross. Maya shook his hand, still confused by the entire interaction. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but she couldn't place it. It was nice meeting you, Mr. Cross. I hope you enjoyed your meal. I did indeed, he replied, his steel-gray eyes holding hers for a moment longer than felt casual. I have a feeling we'll be seeing each other again soon. With that cryptic comment, he walked away, leaving Maya staring after him with a mixture of curiosity and bewilderment. She folded the receipt carefully and slipped it into her apron pocket, planning to ask her manager about the proper procedure for handling such an unusually large tip. The rest of her shift passed normally, but Maya found herself thinking about the strange encounter. There had been something about Alexander Cross that suggested he wasn't accustomed to being told no, yet he had accepted her refusal with what seemed like genuine respect rather than anger. It was unusual, and it left her with an odd feeling that their brief interaction had been more significant than it appeared on the surface. That evening, as Maya walked the 6 blocks to her small apartment, she replayed the conversation in her mind. She lived in a modest one-bedroom place that she shared with her cat Luna, and while she had dreams of eventually saving enough money to go back to school for her business degree, the reality of her financial situation kept those plans perpetually on hold. Maya had grown up in a working-class family, where fairness and treating people with dignity were considered fundamental values, not negotiable principles that could be abandoned for financial gain. Her parents had immigrated from Mexico when she was 5, and they had instilled in her a deep respect for hard work and treating everyone with kindness, regardless of their station in life. As she climbed the narrow stairs to her apartment, Maya wondered what Alexander Cross did for a living that allowed him to casually offer thousands of dollars to clear out a restaurant patio. His clothing and demeanor suggested serious wealth, but beyond that, she had no idea what kind of business empire might lie behind his confident facade. Luna greeted her at the door with typical feline indifference, and Maya spent the evening as she usually did, catching up on household chores, reading a book she had borrowed from the library, and preparing for another day of work tomorrow. The $500 tip would help significantly with her monthly expenses, but it also left her with a nagging sense that something important had happened that she didn't fully understand. The next morning dawned bright and clear, with the kind of perfect weather that drew crowds to the beachfront cafe. Maya woke at 7:30, as she did every Sunday, planning to enjoy a leisurely morning before her shift started at 11. She made coffee, fed Luna, and was settling down with a book when she heard an unusual sound outside her window. The rhythmic thrum of helicopter rotors grew steadily louder, which was odd because Maya's apartment was several miles inland from the tourist areas where helicopter tours were common. She looked out her window and was shocked to see a sleek black helicopter circling her neighborhood, apparently looking for a place to land. Maya watched in amazement as the aircraft settled onto the empty lot next to her apartment building, its rotors gradually slowing as curious neighbors began emerging from their homes to investigate the unusual craft. Visitor. She had never seen a helicopter land in her neighborhood before, and she couldn't imagine what kind of emergency or important business would require such dramatic transportation. A man in a pilot's uniform stepped out of the helicopter, followed by someone Maya recognized with a shock of surprise. Alexander Cross emerged from the aircraft wearing casual khakis and a polo shirt, looking remarkably relaxed for someone who had just arrived by helicopter on a Sunday morning. Maya's phone rang, startling her out of her amazement. An unfamiliar number appeared on the screen, and she answered it hesitantly. "Ms. Rodriguez? This is Alexander Cross. I believe you can see me from your window right now." Maya looked down at the lot where Alexander was indeed looking up toward her building, phone pressed to his ear. "Mr. Cross? What are you doing here?" "I have a business proposition for you, and I thought it would be better to discuss it in person. Would you mind coming down? I promise this won't take long." Still in shock, Maya agreed and quickly threw on jeans and a t-shirt before heading downstairs. The small crowd of neighbors parted as she approached the helicopter, their curious stares making her feel self-conscious about the surreal situation. "Good morning, Maya," Alexander said, extending his hand as she approached. "I apologize for the dramatic entrance, but I wanted to catch you before you started work today." "How did you know where I live?" Maya asked, still processing the impossibility of the scene before her. "I have excellent research resources," Alexander replied with a slight smile. "I hope you don't mind the intrusion, but what I want to discuss with you is time-sensitive." Maya looked around at her neighbors, who were clearly fascinated by the unexpected entertainment. "Maybe we could talk somewhere more private?" "Actually, that's part of what I want to discuss," Alexander said. "How would you feel about taking a short trip with me? Somewhere we could have a proper conversation without an audience." The rational part of Maya's mind immediately began listing all the reasons why getting into a helicopter with a virtual stranger was a terrible idea. However, something about Alexander's demeanor suggested that this was a legitimate business discussion, rather than anything dangerous or inappropriate. "Where would we be going?" she asked cautiously. "My island resort, about 45 minutes from here by helicopter. I have a business opportunity that I think would interest you, but it's complex enough that I'd prefer to show you rather than just tell you about it." Maya felt her heart racing. The previous day's encounter had been unusual enough, but this was moving into completely surreal territory. "Mr. Cross, I appreciate whatever offer you're making, but I don't really know anything about you, and getting into your helicopter feels like something I should probably think about for more than 30 seconds. Alexander nodded approvingly. "Your caution is exactly why I'm here, Maya. You demonstrated yesterday that you make decisions based on principles rather than immediate rewards. That's a rare quality, and it's exactly what I need for the position I want to offer you." "What position?" "Director of Guest Relations at Coral Paradise Resort. It's a luxury destination that caters to extremely high-end clientele, and I need someone who understands that true hospitality means caring about every guest's experience equally, not just catering to whoever has the most money." End quote. Maya stared at him in disbelief. "You want to offer me a job based on one conversation we had yesterday? That conversation told me more about your character than most people reveal in hours of interviews," Alexander replied. "But you're right to be cautious. How about this? Let me show you my identification, give you my business card, and provide you with the phone number for my corporate headquarters so you can verify who I am. Then, if you're comfortable, we'll take a short trip so I can show you what I'm offering." Alexander pulled out his wallet and handed Maya a driver's license, several business cards, and a corporate identification card that identified him as Alexander Cross, CEO of Paradise Hospitality Group. Maya recognized the company name from magazine articles. She had read, it was one of the most exclusive resort chains in the world, catering to celebrities, politicians, and business leaders who valued privacy, and exceptional service above all else. "You own Paradise Hospitality Group?" Maya asked, her understanding of the previous day's encounter suddenly shifting into focus. "I do, and our flagship property is about to undergo a major expansion. I need someone to lead guest relations who understands that luxury isn't about giving preferential treatment to people who demand it. It's about ensuring that every single person who walks through our doors feels valued and respected." End quote. Maya looked at the helicopter, then back at Alexander's earnest expression. The opportunity he was describing sounded like something out of a fantasy, completely removed from her reality of serving coffee and fish sandwiches to tourists. Yet something in his tone suggested that this was a genuine offer, rather than some elaborate joke or scam. "If I come with you, you'll bring me back today?" she asked. "Absolutely. We'll be back in time for your evening shift, if you want to work it." Maya took a deep breath, feeling as though she was about to step off a cliff into completely unknown territory. "Okay, Mr. Cross, show me what you're talking about." The helicopter ride was unlike anything Maya had ever experienced. As they lifted off from the empty lot, her apartment building and familiar neighborhood quickly shrank below them, giving way to an aerial view of the coastline that took her breath away. Alexander sat across from her, pointing out landmarks and explaining the route they were taking to reach his resort. "Coral Paradise is built on a private island that I purchased 15 years ago," he explained over the noise of the rotors. "It took 3 years to develop the infrastructure and another 2 to build the resort itself. We have 48 guest suites, each with direct ocean access, and we typically host between 80 and 100 guests at Taula, any given time." Maya listened intently, trying to absorb the scale of what he was describing. "What kind of guests do you typically have? Business leaders? Celebrities? Politicians? People who value privacy and discretion above everything else. They're accustomed to exceptional service. But many of them have also become jaded by experiences where they feel like they're being treated as walking wallets rather than human beings." End quote. As they approached the island, Maya could see why Alexander had chosen this location for his resort. The island was roughly circular, perhaps 2 miles across, with pristine white sand beaches surrounding a central area of lush tropical vegetation. The resort buildings were distributed throughout the island in a way that seemed to blend naturally with the landscape, connected by winding paths that followed the natural contours of the terrain. "It's beautiful," Maya said softly, genuinely amazed by the sight below them. "Thank you," Alexander replied, and Maya could hear genuine pride in his voice. "But beauty isn't enough in this business. Our guests can find beautiful beaches anywhere in the Caribbean. What they can't find everywhere is staff who genuinely care about creating meaningful experiences, rather than just going through the motions of luxury service." End quote. The helicopter touched down on a landing pad near the resort's main building, and Maya followed Alexander along a stone pathway that led through gardens filled with tropical flowers she couldn't identify. The level of attention to detail was immediately apparent, from the perfectly maintained landscaping to the subtle lighting that would make the paths easy to navigate after dark. The main building was an elegant structure that managed to feel both luxurious and welcoming, with open-air spaces that took advantage of the ocean breezes and expansive windows that offered stunning views in every direction. Maya could see guests relaxing on various terraces and patios, but the overall atmosphere felt peaceful rather than busy. "The current director of guest relations is retiring next month," Alexander explained as they walked through the lobby. "She's been with us since we opened, and she's done an excellent job. But she's ready to spend more time with her grandchildren. Finding the right replacement has been challenging because this job requires a very specific combination of skills and personality traits. They paused in the lobby, and Maya could see staff members moving efficiently but unhurriedly throughout the space, attending to various tasks with the kind of smooth coordination that suggested excellent training and clear communication. The guests she observed seemed relaxed and content, engaged in quiet conversations, or simply enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. What exactly would this position involve? Maya asked. You would oversee all aspects of guest experience, from the moment they arrive until they leave, Alexander explained. That includes coordinating with housekeeping, restaurant staff, activities coordinators, and transportation logistics. But more importantly, it means being the person who ensures that each guest feels genuinely cared for throughout their stay. Alexander led her to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. The compensation package includes a salary of $120,000 per year, full health and dental insurance, housing in a staff apartment on the island, and 4 weeks of vacation time. After 2 years, there's a performance bonus structure that could increase your total compensation significantly. Maya felt dizzy trying to process the numbers Alexander was quoting. The salary alone was more than triple what she currently earned, and the benefits package was beyond anything she had ever imagined having access to. Mr. Cross, this sounds incredible, but I don't have any experience managing luxury hospitality. I've been a waitress for 3 years. Don't you need someone with a hotel management degree or years of experience at high-end resorts? Traditional qualifications are important, Alexander agreed. But they're not the most crucial factor for this particular position. I've hired plenty of people with impressive resumes who turned to trolley out to be completely wrong for our environment. What I learned yesterday is that you have something much more valuable than credentials. You have genuine integrity and the ability to make principled decisions under pressure." End quote. Alexander gestured toward the window, where they could see guests enjoying various activities on the beach and around the resort grounds. Every person you see out there has enough money to demand whatever they want, whenever they want it. Many of them are accustomed to getting their way simply because they can afford to pay for it. But what they really want, even if they don't consciously realize it, is to be treated like human beings rather than just wealthy customers. End quote. Maya followed his gaze, watching a family with 2 young children building sandcastles while their parents relaxed in nearby chairs. At another location, an elderly couple walked slowly along the beach, holding hands and pointing out various shells and sea life they encountered. The scene was peaceful and natural, nothing like the formal, rigid atmosphere she had expected at such an exclusive resort. "The incident yesterday wasn't really about clearing tables," Alexander continued. "It was a test. Though I didn't plan it that way initially, I wanted to see how you would handle a situation where someone with obvious wealth tried to use that wealth to override the needs of other people. Your response told me that you have the judgment and character necessary to succeed in this role." Maya turned to face him directly. "So you deliberately created that conflict to see how I would react?" "Not exactly," Alexander replied. "I genuinely did want privacy for some important calls, and offering to compensate the restaurant seemed like a reasonable solution. But when you refused, I realized I was witnessing something much more valuable than a simple business transaction. You demonstrated that you could balance respect for a customer's request with consideration for other people's needs. And you did it without being rude or dismissive." Alexander opened a folder that had been sitting on the conference table and removed several documents. "These are testimonials from guests who have stayed here over the past 5 years. I'd like you to read a few of them and tell me what you think they have in common." Maya took the papers and began reading. The first was a letter from a technology executive who praised the staff for remembering that his daughter was allergic to shellfish and ensuring that every meal she was served during their week-long stay was completely safe. The second was from a famous actress who wrote about how the housekeeping staff had noticed she was struggling with insomnia and had quietly adjusted her room's lighting and provided chamomile tea without being asked. A third letter came from a retired diplomat who appreciated that the staff had learned his wife's favorite flowers and had ensured that fresh arrangements were waiting in their room each day. They're all about staff members who paid attention to personal details and went beyond basic service requirements, Maya observed. Exactly, Alexander said. Luxury isn't about gold fixtures or expensive linens, though we have those too. Real luxury is about feeling genuinely cared for by people who notice what makes you happy and then make it happen without being asked. That requires staff who are naturally observant, empathetic, and proactive. Alexander stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the resort grounds. I've been running this resort for over a decade, and I've learned that the difference between a good experience and an extraordinary one usually comes down to whether the staff genuinely cares about the guests as individuals. You can teach someone proper etiquette and service procedures, but you can't teach someone to actually care about other people's happiness. Maya set the testimonials back on the table, her mind racing as she tried to process everything Alexander had shared with her. The opportunity he was describing was so far beyond anything she had ever imagined for herself that it felt almost surreal. Yet at the same time, his description of the work itself, focusing on making people feel valued and cared for, resonated deeply with values she had held her entire life. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "Why is this position so important to you personally? You obviously have many other aspects of the business to focus on." Alexander turned back toward her, and for the first time since she had met him, his expression seemed less controlled and more genuinely emotional. "My father built his fortune in real estate, and he taught me that success meant accumulating wealth and power as efficiently as possible. For the first 15 years of my career, that's exactly what I focused on. I acquired properties, expanded operations, and measured everything in terms of profit margins and market share." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts before continuing. "But about 10 years ago, I had an experience that changed my perspective completely. I was staying at one of my own hotels, traveling incognito to evaluate our service standards, and I witnessed a front desk manager humiliate an elderly couple because their reservation had been mishandled by Croak, our booking system. The manager treated them like they were inconveniencing him by expecting the room they had paid for." Alexander's jaw tightened as he recalled the memory. "I realized that in my focus on efficiency and profits, I had created an organizational culture where staff felt more accountable to operational metrics than to the actual human beings we were supposed to be serving. That couple had saved for months to afford their anniversary trip, and our staff made them feel unwelcome and unimportant." Maya could see that this memory still affected Alexander strongly, and she began to understand why her refusal to clear the restaurant patio had resonated with him so deeply. "I fired that manager the next day and spent the following year completely restructuring how we hire, train, and evaluate our staff," Alexander continued. "But I learned that changing systems is easy compared to changing culture. I need people in leadership positions who naturally understand that our job is to make people happy, not just to process transactions efficiently." Alexander returned to his seat at the conference table and leaned forward slightly. "Maya, I'm not just offering you a job. I'm asking you to help me build something meaningful. This resort could be just another expensive place for rich people to vacation, or it could be a place where people have genuinely transformative experiences because they feel truly valued and cared for." The weight of what Alexander was proposing settled over Maya like a warm blanket. She thought about her current life, serving coffee and sandwiches to tourists who barely acknowledged her existence. Living paycheck to paycheck in a small apartment, with no real prospects for advancement or change. Then she imagined herself in the role Alexander was describing, leading a team dedicated to creating meaningful experiences for people, having the resources and authority to make real differences in how people felt about themselves and their lives. "This is a lot to process," Maya said honestly. "Yesterday, I was worried about whether I'd made enough in tips to cover my electric bill, and today you're offering me a position that would completely change my life." "I understand that it's overwhelming," Alexander replied, "and I don't expect you to make a decision immediately. But I do want you to understand that this opportunity exists because of who you are as a person, not despite your lack of traditional hospitality experience." Alexander opened another folder and removed what appeared to be a detailed job description. "Take this with you. It outlines all the specific responsibilities, the training program we would provide, and the support structure that would be available to help you succeed. I'm also including contact information for 3 current department heads who would be working with you, as well as our retiring director of guest relations. I encourage you to speak with all of them about what this role really involves on a day-to-day basis. Maya accepted the folder, noticing that her hands were trembling slightly from the adrenaline of the entire surreal experience. When would you need an answer? Take 2 weeks, Alexander said. That will give you time to think it through carefully. Speak with the people I mentioned and ask any questions that come up. This is a life-changing decision, and I want you to be completely comfortable with it before you commit. Alexander stood and extended his hand to Maya. Regardless of what you decide, I want you to know that meeting you yesterday restored some of my faith in the idea that there are still people who make decisions based on principles rather than personal gain. That alone made our encounter worthwhile. Maya shook his hand, still feeling as though she were moving through a dream. Thank you for this opportunity, Mr. Cross. Even if I ultimately decide it's not right for me, I'm grateful that you thought I was worth considering. The gratitude is entirely mine, Alexander replied. Now, let's get you back home so you can process all of this properly. The helicopter ride back to Maya's neighborhood passed more quickly than the trip to the island. Partly because Maya was lost in thought about everything she had seen and heard. The contrast between her modest apartment building and the luxury resort was stark. But somehow the gap didn't feel as insurmountable as it might have that morning. As the aircraft settled back onto the empty lot where their journey had begun, Maya realized that regardless of her ultimate decision, the day had fundamentally changed how she thought about her own potential and the possibilities that might exist in her future. Alexander walked her to the edge of the lot, where her curious neighbors were still lingering to observe the conclusion of the morning's excitement. Maya, I hope you'll seriously consider this opportunity. I believe you have the potential to excel in ways that might surprise even yourself. I will definitely think about it carefully, Maya promised. And thank you again for showing me your resort. It really is remarkable what you've built there. As the helicopter lifted off and disappeared over the horizon, Maya stood in the parking lot clutching the folder of information Alexander had given her. The entire experience felt like something that had happened to someone else. But the weight of the documents in her hands confirmed that it had been real. Over the following days, Maya found herself reviewing the job description and resort information repeatedly, each time discovering new details that both excited and intimidated her. The position Alexander had described would require her to coordinate complex logistics, manage relationships with demanding clients, and oversee a staff of more than 30 people across multiple departments. Yet the more she read about Coral Paradise Resort's philosophy and approach to guest relations, the more Maya felt a deep resonance with values she had always held, but never imagined could be the foundation of a career. The idea of creating meaningful experiences for people, of leading a team dedicated to making others feel valued and cared for, appealed to something fundamental in her nature. Maya called the 3 department heads whose contact information Alexander had provided, and each conversation reinforced her growing sense that Coral Paradise was genuinely different from other luxury hospitality operations she had read about. The head of housekeeping spoke passionately about how staff members were encouraged to notice and respond to guests' individual preferences. The food and beverage director explained how the kitchen staff maintained detailed notes about dietary restrictions, favored dishes, and even preferred dining times for returning guests. Most importantly, her conversation with Eleanor Rodriguez, the retiring director of guest relations, provided crucial insights into what the role would actually require on a daily basis. The work is demanding, Elena explained during their hour-long phone conversation, but it's also incredibly rewarding. When you help create an experience that genuinely touches someone's life, when you see how feeling truly cared for can change a person's entire perspective, that's when you realize you're doing something meaningful rather than just processing reservations and managing complaints. Elena also provided honest insights into the challenges Maya would face. You'll be working with people who are accustomed to having enormous control over their environments, and sometimes their expectations can be unrealistic or even contradictory. The key is learning to find creative solutions that address the underlying need behind their requests, even when you can't give them exactly what they initially asked for. As Maya processed all of this information, she found herself thinking constantly about the life she was currently living versus the life Alexander was offering her. Her work at Seaside Cafe was pleasant enough, and she genuinely enjoyed interacting with customers, but there was little opportunity for growth or meaningful impact. She was essentially living day to day, covering her basic expenses, but never building toward anything larger or more significant. The financial security Alexander's offer would provide was certainly appealing, but Maya realized that what truly excited her was the possibility of doing work that aligned with her deepest values, while also challenging her to develop skills and capabilities she had never had the opportunity to explore. On the 10th day after her helicopter trip to Coral Paradise, Maya made her decision. She called Alexander's direct number, which he had provided along with all the other information. "Mr. Cross, this is Maya Rodriguez. I wanted to let you know that I would be honored to accept the position you offered me." "Maya, that's wonderful news," Alexander replied, and she could hear genuine pleasure in his voice. "I'm thrilled that you've decided to join our team. When would you be able to start?" "I'll need to give 2 weeks' notice at my current job, and I'd like to find a good home for my cat if pets aren't allowed in the staff." "Housing?" Maya said. "Pets are absolutely welcome," Alexander assured her. "Luna will love the island. And 2 weeks is perfect. That will give us time to finalize your housing arrangements and schedule your initial training sessions with Elena before she officially retires." As Maya hung up the phone, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded her of the first day of school when she was a child. She was about to embark on a completely new chapter of her life, one that would challenge her to grow in ways she couldn't yet imagine. The transition from her old life to her new position at Coral Paradise Resort unfolded more smoothly than Maya had dared to hope. Her manager at Seaside Cafe was genuinely happy for her advancement, and her co-workers threw a small farewell party during her last shift. Several regular customers, who had gotten to know Maya over the years, wished her well and expressed their confidence that she would excel in her new role. The most emotional part of leaving was saying goodbye to her parents, who lived about an hour away and had been her primary source of support and encouragement throughout her adult life. When Maya explained the opportunity Alexander had offered her, her mother cried with happiness and pride. "Mija, we always knew you had something special inside you," her mother said, embracing her tightly. "This man, he saw what we have always seen." Her father, typically more reserved in his emotional expressions, simply nodded and said, "He will make us proud, as you always have." On her first day at Coral Paradise Resort, Maya stood on the dock where the staff transportation boat had delivered her and her belongings, including Luna and her travel carrier. The island looked even more beautiful than she remembered from her helicopter visit, and the reality that this would be her new home felt both surreal and deeply satisfying. Elena met her at the dock and spent the first week providing intensive training on all aspects of guest relations management. Maya learned about the resort's reservation systems, the detailed guest preference databases that staff maintained, and the communication protocols that kept all departments coordinated in their efforts to provide seamless service. But more importantly, Elena shared the philosophy and approach that had made her successful in the role for over a decade. "The secret," Elena explained, "is remembering that luxury is ultimately about making people feel special, not about providing expensive things. A guest who feels genuinely cared for by our staff will treasure their experience here regardless of whether we have the finest linens or the most exclusive amenities." Maya absorbed every detail of Elena's training, but she also brought her own perspective and ideas to the role. Her experience serving a diverse range of customers at Seaside Cafe had taught her to read people's moods and needs quickly, and she found that these skills translated perfectly to working with Coral Paradise's elite Gushan clientele. Within her first month, Maya had implemented several small changes that significantly improved guest satisfaction scores. She introduced a system where housekeeping staff would leave personalized welcome notes in each room, sharing interesting facts about the island's wildlife or suggestions for activities based on the guest's stated interests. She also established daily communication meetings between department heads to ensure that any special requests or concerns were addressed proactively rather than reactively. The transformation in Maya's life extended far beyond her professional responsibilities. Living on the island provided a sense of peace and connection to nature that she had never experienced in her urban apartment. Luna adapted quickly to their new environment, spending her days exploring the gardens and lounging in sunny spots throughout Maya's spacious staff quarters. Maya's apartment was located in a beautifully designed staff residence building that offered stunning ocean views and easy access to all resort facilities. The living space was larger and more luxurious than anywhere she had ever lived, but what impressed her most was the sense of community among the resort staff. Unlike the often impersonal work environment she had experienced at previous jobs, Coral Paradise fostered genuine relationships and mutual support among employees. Alexander had been right about the demanding nature of working with high-profile guests, but Maya discovered that her natural empathy and problem-solving abilities served her well in navigating complex, interpersonal situations. When a prominent tech executive became frustrated because a planned diving excursion was canceled due to weather conditions, Maya worked with the activities coordinator to arrange a private marine biology presentation that turned out to be far more engaging than the original dive would have been. Similarly, when a celebrity couple arrived with their teenage daughter, who was clearly reluctant to be on a family vacation, Maya discreetly arranged for the resort's marine conservation team to invite the girl to participate in their sea turtle monitoring program. The opportunity to contribute to meaningful environmental work transformed the teenager's attitude about the trip and created a bonding experience with her parents that none of them had expected. These successes reinforced Maya's growing confidence in her ability to excel in her new role, but they also deepened her appreciation for Alexander's vision of what luxury hospitality could accomplish. She began to understand that her job wasn't simply about managing logistics or resolving complaints. It was about creating opportunities for people to connect with themselves, their loved ones, and the natural world in ways that enriched their lives beyond their stay at the resort. As Maya settled into her role over the following months, she also developed a deeper working relationship with Alexander. He spent several days each month at Coral Paradise, reviewing operations and meeting with department heads, and Maya found their professional interactions both challenging and intellectually stimulating. Alexander had high standards and expected detailed reporting on guest satisfaction metrics, operational efficiency measures, and staff development initiatives. However, he also encouraged creative thinking and supported Maya's ideas for enhancing the guest experience, even when those ideas required significant resource investments. When Maya proposed creating a mentorship program that would pair resort staff with local island residents who could share traditional knowledge about marine ecosystems, sustainable fishing practices, and cultural history, Alexander immediately approved funding for the initiative. The program not only enriched the educational offerings available to guests, but also strengthened the resort's relationship with the local community in ways that benefited everyone involved. Maya's success in her new role was reflected not only in guest satisfaction scores, which reached all-time highs during her first 6 months, but also in the positive feedback she received from colleagues and industry professionals. Elena, who had remained in contact with Maya throughout the transition, expressed amazement at how quickly and effectively Maya had adapted to the demands of luxury hospitality management. "You have exceeded every expectation I had," Elena told Maya during one of their regular phone conversations. "But more importantly, you've brought fresh energy and ideas to the role that have made the entire operation better." The recognition Maya received from her peers was gratifying, but what truly fulfilled her was the knowledge that her work was making a genuine difference in people's lives. She received dozens of thank you notes from guests who described how their experiences at Coral Paradise had provided them with renewed perspective, strengthened family relationships, or simply offered the deep relaxation and rejuvenation they had desperately needed. One letter that particularly moved Maya came from a widow who had visited the resort on the first anniversary of her husband's death. The woman wrote about how the staff's gentle attentiveness and the peaceful beauty of the island had helped her begin to heal from her grief and find hope for her future again. "Your team didn't just provide excellent service," the woman wrote. "They helped me remember that life can still hold joy and wonder, even after profound loss. That gift is beyond anything I could have imagined when I made this reservation." Reading testimonials like this reinforced Maya's sense that she had found her true calling, work that utilized her natural abilities while contributing to something meaningful and worthwhile. The financial security and professional advancement that came with her position were certainly important. But the deeper satisfaction of knowing that her efforts enhanced other people's lives provided a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. As Maya approached her first anniversary at Coral Paradise Resort, Alexander asked her to participate in the annual strategic planning retreat, where senior staff would evaluate the previous year's performance and develop goals for the coming year. This was the first time Maya had been included in such high-level planning discussions, and she understood that her invitation represented both recognition of her contributions and an opportunity to influence the resort's future direction. During the 3-day retreat, Maya presented detailed analysis of guest satisfaction trends, staff development initiatives, and operational improvements she had implemented or proposed. Her presentation was well received, but what impressed Alexander and the other senior staff most was her comprehensive understanding of how various aspects of the resort's operations interconnected to create the great overall guest experience. Maya had developed systems thinking that allowed her to see how improvements in one area could create positive ripple effects throughout the entire operation. When she recommended investing in advanced language translation technology to better serve international guests, she also explained how this investment would reduce stress on multilingual staff members, improve communication efficiency, and create opportunities for staff to develop new technical skills. Similarly, her proposal to establish partnerships with local artisans and cultural practitioners wasn't just about enhancing guest activities, it was also about creating sustainable economic opportunities for island residents, preserving traditional knowledge and skills, and differentiating Coral Paradise from other luxury resorts that offered more generic vacation experiences. Alexander was impressed not only by the quality of Maya's strategic thinking, but also by her ability to articulate complex ideas clearly and persuasively. During the retreat's final session, he announced that Maya would be promoted to Senior Director of Guest Relations, with expanded responsibilities that included oversight of marketing initiatives and new program development. Maya has demonstrated exceptional leadership capability and strategic vision, Alexander told the assembled staff. Her promotion reflects both her outstanding performance in her current role and our confidence in her ability to take on greater responsibilities as we continue to grow and evolve. The promotion came with a substantial salary increase, expanded benefits, and the opportunity to participate in Paradise Hospitality Group's executive development program. Maya would spend several weeks each year visiting other properties in the company's portfolio, learning different approaches to luxury hospitality, and sharing successful practices she had developed at Coral Paradise. As Maya reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her from serving coffee at a beachfront cafe to leading guest relations at one of the world's most exclusive resorts, she felt profound gratitude for the chance encounter that had changed her life so dramatically. Her decision to stand up for the principle that all customers deserved fair treatment had led to opportunities she never could have imagined for herself. But perhaps more importantly, Maya realized that her success wasn't really about the dramatic change in her circumstances. It was about discovering that the values and qualities she had always possessed, her empathy, integrity, and genuine care for other people's well-being, were not just personal virtues, but professional assets that could create meaningful value in the world. The lesson Maya learned from her experience was that sometimes the most important opportunities come not from pursuing advancement aggressively, but from staying true to your principles, even when doing so seems to offer no immediate benefit. Her refusal to prioritize one customer's wealth over other people's dignity had demonstrated character traits that Alexander recognized as essential for creating truly exceptional hospitality experiences. Maya's story also illustrated the profound impact that leaders like Alexander could have when they chose to recognize and cultivate potential in unexpected places. Rather than simply hiring someone with impressive credentials and traditional qualifications, Alexander had invested in someone whose character and values aligned with his vision for what his business could accomplish. As Maya stood on her apartment balcony one evening, watching the sunset paint the ocean in brilliant shades of gold and orange, while Luna purred contentedly in her lap, She thought about how much her life had changed in such a short time. The woman who had worried about electric bills and lived paycheck to paycheck seemed like a different person entirely. Yet Maya knew that fundamentally, she was the same person who had refused to clear that restaurant patio because it wouldn't have been fair to the other customers. The difference wasn't in who she was, but in having found an environment where being true to herself was not just accepted but valued and rewarded. Maya had learned that the right opportunity, combined with the courage to seize it, could transform not just a career, but an entire life. Looking toward the future, Maya felt excited about the challenges and possibilities that lay ahead. She was already developing ideas for new programs and services that could enhance Coral Paradise's reputation as a destination where guests experienced not just luxury, but genuine transformation and renewal. She envisioned partnerships with environmental conservation organizations, wellness practitioners, and cultural educators that would create opportunities for guests to engage with meaningful causes while enjoying their vacation. Maya also looked forward to mentoring other staff members who showed potential for advancement, sharing the lessons she had learned about leadership, hospitality, and the importance of maintaining authenticity even in professional environments that might seem to demand conformity. But most of all, Maya felt grateful for the reminder that life could change in unexpected ways when you remained open to possibilities while staying true to your fundamental principles. Her encounter with Alexander had taught her that integrity and empathy weren't obstacles to professional success. They were the foundation upon which truly meaningful success could be built. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky above Coral Paradise Resort, Maya smiled at the thought that somewhere out there, other people might be facing their own crossroads moments, chances to choose between expedience and principle, between immediate gain and long-term integrity. She hoped that when those moments came, they would find the courage to make choices that honored their deepest values, because sometimes those choices led to possibilities more wonderful than anything they could have imagined. The story of Maya Rodriguez's transformation from waitress to luxury resort executive would become part of Coral Paradise's company culture, shared with new employees as an example of how recognizing and nurturing character could create opportunities for extraordinary growth and achievement. But for Maya herself, the most important part of her story wasn't the dramatic change in her circumstances. It was the discovery that being true to herself wasn't a limitation on her potential. It was the key to unlocking possibilities she had never dared to dream.